Hello again, I'm Wealth. I'm a 50th year medical student of UI and I've written a whole lot of MCQ or objective exams. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing 10 tips, tricks and strategies that will increase your chances of picking the correct answer anytime you are writing an MCQ exam. Make sure to stick to the end to not miss any part of this video. And also please like the video and subscribe to the channel. This video is going to be divided into two parts. The first part is going to be how to best prepare for MCQ examination, and the second part is going to be the tips and tricks that will increase your chances of actually picking the right option even when you have no idea what the question is talking about. How to prepare for an MCQ or objective exam is slightly different from when you're preparing for an essay or theory exam. That is why you should always, for every single exam you'll be writing, you should always know the exam modality. You should always know what form the exam is going to be. Is it going to be an MCQ, essay? Is it going to be short answer question? It's important to know this. So you're going to tailor your preparation towards this kinds of exam. So the two main advice when preparing for an MCQ is: number one, cover as much as possible of the syllabus you're required to learn, and also understand the material. Because for MCQ exam, if for example I'm a lecturer or I'm an examiner for a particular exam and I taught 15 topics, or you're expected to know 15 topics, it makes sense for an MCQ to cover all the 15 topics if possible, or cover maybe at least 10 of the 15 topics. Bottom line is that try to cover as much as you can of the syllabus you're required to learn and try to understand it, because many of these MCQ exams test your understanding. The second thing to do when preparing for an MCQ exam is to practice a lot of past questions. When you practice past questions, this will show you how the actual exam is going to be and help you prepare accordingly. I preach practicing past questions a lot for any exam you're going to be doing, because it's actually very helpful. This actually reminds me of one chemistry course I took in 100 level. My approach to that chemistry course was to read the material over and over again, trying to understand every detail in the slide. When I wrote the first test for that chemistry course, I scored below 10 over 20, and it was so painful because I worked so hard for it. But when I was preparing for the second test, I actually went to check past questions, and I realized that this lecturer was not really setting questions based on understanding of the material. The way he set question was to just test our ability to memorize facts. And I also noticed the kind of question he was asking. So when I was preparing for my second test and exam, because I've checked past questions, I knew what to pay attention to while I was reading the material. And despite failing the first test, I still managed to have a distinction in the course. Number one is to read the questions carefully, but not necessarily slowly, because you have to also manage your time very well. And when you're reading the questions, pay attention to qualifiers like not, none, all, or any. For example, they can say which of this is not, and if you read the question as which of this is, you're going to pick the direct opposite. Some examiners are also very kind to put all those qualifiers in capital letter. So basically, when you're writing an MCQ exam, when you're in the exam, or try to pay attention to what you're reading, focus on it and try to not be distracted, because missing one word can actually make you pick the wrong answer, and it will be painful, because if you had not omitted that word, you would have chosen the right answer. Number two is to pick the best option. When you're writing an MCQ objective exam, the instruction is to pick the best option. While you're reading the question, try to simultaneously think of the possible answer. And the reason this helps is because sometimes the options are put there to confuse you. So as you're reading the question, you already have the answer in your head to that question. By the time you look at the option and see the answer in the option, it is very easy to pick it and not be confused by the other option. But actually, you are meant to pick the best option. Sometimes one option might seem correct, but when you look at the other option, you realize that there's a better option that best fits the question. Basically, the advice here is, whenever you're taking an MCQ exam, when you see the apparently correct option, make sure you also look at the other options and ensure that, okay, these other options are wrong and the one you're picking is actually the best. Tip number three is to eliminate the obviously wrong answers. This is something I do a lot and it helps me. It's something I will always encourage. So when you're reading a question and the correct answer doesn't jump at you, or you're not sure what the correct answer is, look at the option. You're probably going to see options that are obviously wrong. You know that this can never be the answer. For those kind of options, just strike them out. So if you strike two out, it means Before, you originally had 25% chances of picking the right answer. Now you have 50% chance. I do this a lot, especially when an MCQ is difficult. When I'm going through the MCQ and I say, "Oh, I don't know what the answer is," I first cancel out the wrong, obviously wrong options, and then I can now eventually pick the one that I think might be the best answer. Number four is to pay attention to the units in the options, especially if you are taking math, science, or any calculative subject that has options with units. Examiners can do this, and they can do this to play trick on you, so you have to actually look out for this. Let me give you an example. There is a question, and after solving the question, the answer you're going to get is 1000 meter per second. The options there are 1000 kilometer per hour and 3600 meter per second. A student that is not careful will just, oh, 1000, the student will just jump at 1000 kilometer per hour. And this is sad because you've spent probably 1 or 2 minutes solving the question and arriving at the correct answer, just for you to fall into the trick of picking the one that has the wrong unit. Whereas if you had paid attention, you would have realized that you had to convert meter per seconds to kilometer per hour. So if you convert 1000 meter per seconds to kilometer per hour, we are going to get 3600 kilometer per hour, which is option B, and that's the correct answer. So please always pay attention to this whenever you are answering MCQ questions. Tip number 5 is also using the options to figure out the formula to solve the question. This also applies to calculative subjects like math, physics, and chemistry. Sometimes if you don't know the formula to solve the problem in the question, just look at the units. I'm going to give a very simple example. If the units in the options are maybe Newton seconds, for example, that tells me that something in Newton, which is force, is multiplied by a time in seconds. That way, I've been able to solve a simple question on momentum without actually reading momentum. Obviously, this doesn't work all the time, but anytime it can work and you don't know the correct formula to solve a question, just use it and all the marks you can possibly earn using all the tricks you can. Tip number 6 is to pick the odd options out. If you've read a question and you have no idea what it is, just look at the option. You probably will have an idea of what the options are. The one that is odd, or the one that is not tending towards the same direction as the others, might be the correct answer. Instead of leaving it blank, you could just pick the one that is odd. I noticed this pattern a lot in English. There are 4 options, and the 3 words in the option are positive statements, like they are positive words. The negative word tends to be the correct answer. Tip number 7 is to manage your time properly, and this is very important because do you know how painful it will be if you realize that there are a lot of questions that you actually know, like you can easily answer this question but could not answer them because time did not permit you. I know how sad it can be because it recently happened to me when I was writing my last MB. Like there was a section that had the simplest part of the whole exam. I couldn't do it and it was painful because that would have been easy mark for me. This is what you should always do every time. Be time conscious in the exam, or when you're reading a question, don't spend too much time on it. And whenever you see a question that you don't have an answer to, don't waste time on it. Just mark the question. If you're given a question paper, just use your biro to circle that question on your question paper so you know to come back to it. But once you've read the difficult question and you skip it to go to the ones that are easy, your mind is actually processing that information in the background. And you could also be lucky that another question can give you a clue to what that answer could be, or it could just give you an hint. And when you go back, you can now find it easier to solve. That way, you are gaining in both ways. First of all, you are having time to do the ones you actually know, and it's also giving your brain time to process that difficult one. And generally, if you're also sitting in an exam that you're probably sitting for 2 or more subjects at the same time in the exam, I would generally advise to start with a simple one, the one you're most confident with, then before going to the ones that you are not confident with. So when you're doing the one that you are confident with, you try to buy time. Like you know that this is your strength, gain enough time there. If the exam is 1 hour, you're meant to spend 30 minutes, you can cut the time to like 20 minutes for the one you are strong at, so that you are going to have like 40 minutes for the one that takes time. The last tip is to be in your best state, be in your best shape anytime you're preparing for any exam, not necessarily just MCQ. Make sure you are well rested before the exam, and make sure you take good care of yourself. When you get to the exam, also try to be in the best state of mind as possible. And you also need to be as calm as possible in the exam. If you fear, you could just say a prayer at the beginning of your exam. Close your eyes like for 2, 3, or 4 seconds and take a deep breath and start the exam. And at the beginning you might feel so much fear, but it dissipates as you go along. And yeah, is there any particular exam you're preparing for? If there's any exam you're preparing for, kindly let me know in the comment section. And yeah, kindly subscribe to the channel if you're not yet subscribed. That's going to mean a lot to me and it's going to make my day. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one.